Knit hearts are a fun Valentine's Day project, and these little patches can be used in all sorts of ways. Attach them to a hat, a scarf, jacket, bag, or any other type of accessory. You can make two, seam them together and stuff them for a little softie, or make a few to gift with Valentines. You'll only need about an hour or so for each and 12 yards of yarn. The step-by-step tutorial is coming up. First things first, I chose to work with Mary Maxim Woodlands yarn for this project because I love the palette of colors that are available, and I also really like the organic look of the alpaca that's blended into this yarn, but you can use any medium weight yarn in your stash. Now this one's not super complicated, but there are a lot of instructions, so to follow this tutorial in the easiest way possible, you'll want to have the pattern handy. You can view it for free on my website, or if you prefer to have a copy to print or save for later, you can buy the PDF in my shop. I'll have a link to both options in the description below. Okay, cast on 7 stitches to get started. By the way, you'll notice I'm using double pointed needles here because honestly they're just really easy to film with. So you can use DPNs if you'd like, these are plenty long enough for this small size project, or you can use straight needles or circulars, whatever you prefer. When you have 7 stitches cast on, turn it, and go ahead and knit every stitch. Now you may need to pull the tail to tighten up that first stitch, so do that if you need, and turn to start the next row. We'll increase on row 2, and the stitch we'll use to increase throughout this pattern is the KFB, or the knit front back. So to work the KFB, insert the needle knitwise, wrap the yarn, and pretend as though you're knitting it as normal, but don't slide it off the needle. Instead, swing the needle around to the back so you can catch the back loop, insert the needle in the back loop, wrap the yarn, and knit it off. Then keep going. Knit every stitch to the last. And KFB again and the last stitch for another increase. That'll bump our stitch count from 7 up to 9, and then you can turn it and knit every stitch for the next row. You'll notice this sort of trend throughout the entire project. You'll always work some sort of increase-decrease combination, followed by a solid knit row. Okay, turn the work, and we have a little repeat here. We actually have several little repeats throughout the project. The first one, though, work rows 2 and 3 more times. You'll increase by 2 stitches every time you do that repeat, so you'll end up with 15 stitches on your needles at the end of that repeat. When you finish that up, your heart will look something like this. Keep in mind that this direction will now be the top of the heart where the bumps are, and this will be the bottom of the heart, of course, where the point is. Knit all stitches to the last. Then KFB. We've increased once here, so this will bring our stitch count from 15 up to 16. Then, of course, flip it and knit every stitch in the next row. This is definitely one of those projects that requires your attention to stay on track of where you are. The best way I found to keep track of my place within the pattern and all of the instructions and repeats is to make check marks on the rows I completed and then tally marks for the repeats. Give that a try if you get the PDF version, otherwise using a row counter will be really helpful too. After that repeat, the heart is starting to take shape and you can definitely tell now which is the top and the bottom. We're picking up on row 16. This time we'll decrease using the SSK or the slip slip knit. This is a left leaning decrease. To work that stitch, you'll insert the needle knitwise and pass it over for the first 2 stitches. Then insert your opposite needle through the front of those stitches, those past stitches, and knit. Then knit every stitch to the last. We need the bottom point to continue to grow and get longer, so KFB in the last stitch to increase. And of course, turn and knit all stitches for the next row. By the way, your solid knit rows will always be worked from the point to the top of the heart. So just keep that in mind if you get distracted and have to put it down and come back later. Now for another little repeat, work rows 16 and 17 3 more times. Throughout this repeat, your stitch count will stay the same at 18 because you're decreasing by 1 at one end and you're increasing by 1 at the other end. When you finish that repeat, you're officially at the halfway point. Everything from here on out will be the opposite of what we just did. So picking up on row 24, we need to increase at the top now, so KFB in the first stitch. Then knit to the last 2 stitches, and we'll work a different decrease. This time we need a right-leaning decrease so our heart has the right shape, and that's the knit 2 together. To work that stitch, insert your needle in both stitches and knit them as if they were one. Again, your stitch count will stay at 18 because we increased and decreased at both ends. Then, you guessed it, knit the next row. And for another little repeat, repeat rows 24 and 25 3 more times. Now keep in mind that your stitch count will stay the same throughout this repeat. You'll have 18 stitches throughout. And here's what your heart will look like at the end of that repeat. We're picking up now on row 32 in those written instructions. You'll knit to the last 2 stitches. Then knit 2 together. This will decrease your stitch count from 18 to 17, and of course, turn and knit the next row. You're definitely seeing a trend here. We've got another repeat coming up, and our repeat for this section of the pattern is rows 32 and 33. You'll repeat those 2 more times. And at the end of that repeat, you'll have 15 stitches on your needles, and this is what your heart will look like. Picking up next on row 38, we'll decrease at both ends now. SSK first. Then knit to the last 2 stitches. And knit 2 together. That'll bring your stitch count down to 13. Then turn for row 39 and knit all stitches. We have one more repeat now, rows 38 and 39. You'll repeat those rows 3 more times. And that'll bring your stitch count back down to 7. All that's left is to bind off. To do that, you'll knit the first 2 stitches, then pass the first loop over the last. Then knit the next stitch, pass the first loop over, and repeat. When you have only 1 loop remaining, pull up on the loop, trim a tail, and then pull the tail through the loop. Now, one thing you'll notice is the bind off edge is much boxier than the cast on edge, so we want to fix that using the tail. You can tinker with this a little to get the best results, but I found it worked really well to run it along the bottom edge here and pull it to sort of smooth out that hard edge. But like I said, play with it, do what works best for you. Now you may want to keep these tails in place. You can sew it onto your project, or you can simply weave them in along the edges and finish it off. That's all for now, friend. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy this fun little project. Also, thank you so much to those of you who are subscribed, who are liking the videos and leaving comments, and especially those who are buying the PDFs. You guys are absolutely crushing it, and there's no way I could keep doing what I'm doing without your support. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so if you like this sort of thing. I share knitting and crochet projects like this all the time, and I'd love to keep inspiring you to make something that brings joy into your life. Happy knitting, and I'll see you in the next one.